Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience as well. The newcomers here, I'm Frank McVeigh, and the chair of the Ad Hoc Committee. Mrs. DiGirolamo, would you read the Open Public Meeting Act statement, please?
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of June 6, 2018 was included in a list of meeting notices sent to newspapers of record and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and has remained continuously posted as the required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk.
Thank you very much. Will we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vicki, would you roll call, please?
Chairman McVeigh.
Here.
Mrs. DiGirolamo.
Here.
Mr. Phillipsburg.
Here.
Mr. Lutz.
Here. I have an opening statement. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending and for your interest in this matter. Before continuing, I must caution the members in attendance that matters before us are not for public participation, involvement, nor comment without subpoena. Those who are found to be out of order or considered unruly by the chairperson shall be requested to leave, subsequently preventing from attendance for the duration of these proceedings. On March 6, 2018, I motioned to form a committee to investigate into the hiring and appointing practices of Mayor Stephen R. Ellis. This request originated from, but not limited to, a series of emails that was presented to the Town Council President for knowledge and information. It has been alleged upon being elected as Mayor of Phillipsburg on November 3, 2015, Mayor Stephen R. Ellis immediately formed a transition team consisting of Phillipsburg Police Officer Mike Swick, Thomas Kent Corcoran, Sherry Corcoran, Chris Troxel, T. Scott Ferguson, Campaign Treasurer Jennifer McBride, Councilman-elect Joshua Davis, and Councilman-elect Mark Lutz. This team instantly began planning the removal of certain town officials and employees, the hiring of friends within that team, and rewarding a majority of those who supported his campaign with jobs and positions within the town's infrastructure. All of this being performed prior to taking the oath of office. Now, it should be noted, as it has been documented during the council public meeting on February 6, 2018 by Council President Fulper, that Councilman Mark Lutz only attended 2 meetings before removing himself from these meetings because of his personal outlooks that something felt wrong about the content and discussions. And to a person that further heightened my suspicion to inquire of an investigation of how I know working with Councilman Lutz prior to and during my tenure as councilman. After being nominated as chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee on May 9, 2018, it was my sole intention, as stated in the meeting, that the information offered warranted an investigation. Understanding the facts behind these emails and making recommendations to council, good or bad and even indifferent, affords the citizens of Phillipsburg an insight to the practices set forth by Mayor Ellis's current term. It is only the truth and transparency that is pursued in these proceedings, not the defamation, embarrassment, or degradation of City Hall, in particular, Mayor Ellis. It will be the responsibility and the expectation of this Ad Hoc Committee to complete this process and shine the light of true transparency on our government for the benefit of all involved, but none more so than you, the constituents. This committee is not ignorant to the fact that this type of behavior may or may not have occurred with prior administrations. But it is our stance, and during our tenure, that we shall not follow suit. Shortly thereafter, the Ad Hoc Committee garnered a respectable amount of television and print media attention. All outlets reported in fairness and reported from an objective stance. This committee stood on our original inquiry and has cooperated, as witnessed in recent weeks, to represent our community in an impartial manner until the outcome of these investigatory circumstances are heard. Thank you. And I want to further state, off of my written prepared opening statement, that these are fair and impartial hearings to the information and facts presented before us. I will remind everyone that we are sworn members. Everyone up here, the councilman of the Ad Hoc Committee, we have taken an oath of office to adhere to a certain standard. And when we are in receipt of information, it is not our job to put our head in the sand, but to investigate. And that is to investigate of any impartial ways, friends, no friends, colleagues, not colleagues, whatever party, whatever that is. That's what we do. And that's what we're going to do this evening and for future meetings. At this time, I want a motion to swear in any witnesses. We do have one witness this evening. That's Mrs. Jennifer McBride. I make a motion to panel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. McBride, would you see Vicki Kleiner, please?
Step forward with her, counsel.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Just repeat after me. I, Jennifer McBride,
Do swear by Almighty God
do swear by Almighty God
that the evidence and statements
that the evidence and statements
that I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but.
Thank you very much. Ms. McBride, would you just state your name for the record and also the council as well, their name?
Jennifer McBride, would you like to get my address? 401 James Street, Phillipsburg, New Jersey. And my attorney?
Yes, Douglas Cole on behalf of Jennifer McBride. I'll be counseling her this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. To both of you, we apologize for the delay. We had lengthy discussions, but again, please accept our apologies to get started. Okay. Ms. McBride, I have an electronic version, and I will bring that up. I have a hard copy version of the emails. Would you like me to give that to you for
I would, yes, thank you.
Would you? Sure, thank you. Oh, yes, there we go. If you wouldn't mind, in just maybe a few sentences on your own accord, explain to the panel exactly your role during the transition team, like where how it, not so how much you can, but just basically your role. That was all.
My main function in the transition team was to contact potential appointees, schedule interview times with the mayor and the transition team, and basically be in part with the interviews that occurred.
I have, there has been a table of organization kind of passed out, an organizational chart. I don't know if you were in receipt of that. Do you have a copy of that?
I do not have
We have a copy right here.
Oh,
So
thank you.
sometimes that makes it easier. And,
Yes.
and for anyone in attendance, it's kind of a map to our inquiry this evening and what we have. I have highlighted of the approximately 62 emails, and for the record, I will ask questions first. I will turn it over to the panel, and then when all questions are done, we'll excuse you for the evening. Thank you. And we won't be long, I promise. I've highlighted myself, firstly, for my questions, a few emails that I just need a little further explanation on. They are, for most of them, they are self-explanatory. Some are filled with a lot of information, and some are just simple, informative. Even in my own notes, I even have down here as just info. So it is, I'm not going to go over all 62 emails at all. But for email number 2, which is right off the beginning,
Yes.
I see that was, email number 1 was also from Mike Swick, starting basically the contact list,
Correct.
right? And that was, he wanted to get that started, to verify addresses. And email number 2, he kind of shrunk the list down just to a smaller group.
Yes.
It said, his last line in that email says, also, please do not distribute. Do you have any knowledge why he didn't want this email list distributed, if there was any, we'll find issue with it?
No, I do not.
Okay. And for the record, and on the table of organization, that would be your very first, very first block on that table of organization.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to jump over to email number 10. And I will not go forward until you're there.
Okay.
Okay. And that was, that's the first agenda. And I have to ask, is this your agenda or is it someone else's agenda? This is,
This is, no, I was not in charge of putting together agendas.
okay. And who would be?
Sherry Corcoran.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I have highlighted here agenda and review for planning board seats. So I guess that grabbed my attention. I believe at that time, as I get further through, were you at this November 14th meeting? Or it'd be hard to...
Yes.
Because the planning board seats, I believe there were some vacancies. Mr. Fulper, I may defer to you because I believe you were at that time a current planning board member. I'm not sure if you were expiring or not. I don't know if you can expand on that.
Chairman, I believe there were 2 seats expiring at that point in time. It would have been myself and Bob Yale. I apologize, that would be 3 if you include Councilman Randy Piazza.
I just want to establish if there was something, if they were talking about those upcoming vacant seats. I know that that's more for the board. I just found it curious that a mayor-elect or council-elect would actually discuss a board. I thought maybe the board would discuss the seats once the mayor was sworn in, but...
Well, they are mayoral appointments.
Yes.
With council consent.
Would it be one mayoral appointment, or?
I believe it's determined by the class of the board member, and at the time there was much confusion on which board members currently, what their current classes were. I believe that the actual classifications weren't tracked properly because there's supposed to be certain amounts of years with overlapping. Some are 4, some are 3. And I believe that that initial email and question was, what are the classifications? Who is going to be whose term was expiring, so that Mayor Alex could come up with an appointment to fill that spot.
Mr. Fulper, is there anything you'd like to add to that or no?
Not at this time.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is we are all here for the practices of, I want to establish whether everything was done properly, and we hope so. Okay. I have email number 17, and that's subject forwarded minutes from 11/19/15. Mine at 15. Okay. All right, and this is where, and again, if you recall, and as you read over that, if this was a meeting you were not at, or you cannot recall, please, please let me know.
I was at this meeting.
Okay, very good. Okay. And these are pretty lengthy meeting minutes. This looks like I'm questioning, we are starting to look at administrative assistants, professional appointments, and some vetting. There's talking about, there's some folks in here that there are, the housing authority is now mentioned as far as seats are up. On 112, and then 8116, that's a council appointed seat to Mr. Shelley. I bring it up because I see a seat open approximately 10 months from the date of this meeting that their discussion on who they're going to fill that with. And I believe Mr. Shelley, I don't want to speak for anyone here that would have housing authority experience. Mr. Shelley lasted till August 1st of 2016 or not.
I have no knowledge of the housing authority appointments, unfortunately.
There's also some mention of vetting in here. Rogie, Mark, and Josh will meet this Saturday, 12/21, to discuss possible candidates for open board seats. Transition team meetings, next meetings to determine the operable. Okay. And I see here he was supposed to meet with former Mayor Wyant on had scheduled a meeting on December 2nd to discuss things. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. The only document received, first point is the only document that we have received so far is the 2015 town budget, which is a point I'll be clarifying a little bit, or a theme I should say, I'll be clarifying a little bit later in the questioning. Okay. Can we jump over to email number 22? Again, that's going to be minutes.
Yes.
And most of the questions come from that because in the minutes it kind of states what happened, and that's where I'm going to find most of it. I'm not critiquing emails and sentences and what people say. It's just after the meetings, it's sort of my concerns, what my questions are, I need clarification for, hopefully to clear up, is what was said or what's perceived in some of the minutes and how it went forward or how it got to point A to point B, which is the table of organization. Okay, this is one of my starred emails here. There is a lot in here regarding the team is looking for 3 to 5 resumes for the following positions: town attorney, municipal judge, administrative assistant to the mayor, DPW supervisor, insurance broker, land use board attorney. Were you present at this meeting, do you recall?
Yes.
This was like a large meeting.
Yes.
That's Roby's SOP email. There's also TTM SOP email. I see there was also established SOPs. When I went through all 62, I only found 2.
Yes, there were only 2.
One of them goes back to 19, and I don't want to regress, but I'll just read it for you. Basically, that was the first SOP establishes, quote unquote, he is the leader. Am I accurate there?
Correct.
Okay. Was there an issue with him not? I don't understand why that would. Were these SOPs just for the duration of the transition team?
Yes.
Meaning it would die off on January 1?
Correct. Other than Councilman Lutz, well, I'll defer to you, sir. I'll ask you if you were at the meeting. I know you excused yourself at your son. If you were at, I don't understand why a transition team would be looking into such
positions within the town's infrastructure as town attorney, municipal judge, DPW supervisor, which I believe we had one. I don't, Vicki, can I ask, do we have a vacancy in the DPW supervisor?
He was
At the time?
retired
He
and
retired.
So we did have a vacancy.
we would.
Okay, very good. That's appropriate then. What, did Mayor Ellenstein can take the lead on most of these discussions, I would hope?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any other larger input from anybody else or any concerns or, because according to SOP 1, I really shouldn't be, but.
Well, he took, he did take input from everybody that was present at the meetings, whether it was myself, his wife, the Corcorans, Thomas Ferguson, anybody that happened to be at the meetings at the time, he would, take everybody's input.
Okay.
I didn't know a lot of people being discussed, so I don't know many
Vicki, may I ask
town
you,
attorneys.
I'm sorry, may I ask you, the administrative assistant to the mayor, was that a position that was open or?
Harry had a secretary, confidential secretary, up to 2007. She retired. And when she retired, they did not fill it. He used either Michelle or myself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very good. Very next email, 23. Transition Committee SOP number 2, dated 11/28/15. Transition team members, 5 total from the group, should attempt the following ASAP: to obtain 5 resumes for each town of Phillipsburg staff position. The group and the mayor we would be recommending for replacement. I had concern on this, again, why a civilian transition team is looking to replace the staff positions at City Hall. And that group would be outsourcing. As council members, you can see how we take, even though I wasn't a council member at the time, I'm trying to wrap my head around that group of people on that table of organization is making the decisions for the town of Phillipsburg before there was a swearing in on January 1st, 2016. That's my concern. So I would ask you, was this, this was not a meeting, this was more of just an SOP that went out?
Correct.
The transition team members will reduce the resumes down to 3 for interviews. 2 transition team members and the mayor-elect will interview 3 people chosen for the submission to council during the town of Phillipsburg reorganization meeting on January 1st, 2016 and thereafter. Background, I realize it's a short time, however, we don't want any citizen to have the ability to say that we are anything like the prior administration's hiring friends and family compared to competent staff. Okay. Were you part of the interview process? Were you the team?
Yes, I was.
Okay, very
And it
good.
wasn't always limited to just the mayor and 2 people. Sometimes there would be as many as 5 or 6 people at the interviews. So it wasn't always just the mayor and 2 people.
Mayor, yes. Okay, thank you for your response. Number 26. That is titled November 28th of 15 minutes. Now this is showing me where resumes are coming in, and you are housing the resumes. Jen has received 3 resumes for a town attorney.
Correct.
You received one resume for the administrative assistant to the mayor, Sherry Corcoran.
Correct.
I should have backtracked on my last email. But I did see how the transition team was sent out to garner 5 resumes,
Correct.
right? This wasn't posted anywhere, correct?
No. It was basically soliciting either firms in the area, specifically in Phillipsburg, to either whether they were personal friends or they knew through other avenues, to see if they wanted to submit a resume for some of these positions.
And looking at these team meeting minutes, did you author these, or is we still with Sherry Corcoran here?
This is Sherry Corcoran.
Point number 9, the mayor's appointment to the Housing Authority Board will be Mike Swick.
Correct. That was the original, mayor's original pick. I believe it was pulled at some point.
Sherry, point number 17. Sherry and Kent will give a list of questions on Commerce Park to Roby for discussion with Harry Wang. Now, I was not a politician at this point. I was a resident of 49 Corliss Avenue, just mowing my grass and taking care of things at home. I'm trying to think, did Sherry or Kent have any position in the town at that time, with any boards, committees, employment within the town?
No, not at that time.
Okay. I just want to establish that the mayor is accepting recommendations from Sherry and Kent Corcoran to discuss that infrastructure, Commerce Park. Number 27. Now, this looks like an application from someone, not an application, but an interest email to you regarding the superintendent of recreation.
Correct.
I'm going to actually be quiet for a moment. Since you had a lot of back and forth with her, this is an extremely well-written email and credentials from this person. Could you expand on this a little bit? And whatever happened to this person?
Oh, well, so at the time it was pretty well known that the current rec department, rec supervisor was going to be retiring. And one of the things that Mayor Ellis asked was to say, does anybody know any qualified potential candidates? He himself actually garnered one from a friend. This specific person happens to actually be a resident of Phillipsburg. She is a friend of mine. We did happen to go to high school. But she actually has a degree in recreation. She's now currently employed with the YMCA of Easton and Phillipsburg. She decided to take the position, the offered position over there, because her resume was never asked back.
Thank you for your response this morning. Email number 29. Looking at 29, this isn't really, I didn't have a question on this. I just need a little clarification. Can you, if you can, could you explain this one a little bit? I'll read it so our attendants can understand what we're talking about. It says, Elfing 519, I believe that's your email.
Correct, that is my personal email.
Hello all, just needed a head count on who will be present during the interviews on Thursday. Please let me know so that our candidates have the correct number of copies of resumes and other information to provide to the group. Thank you, Jen. This is to the Ellis transition email, Mike Swick, Josh Davis, Chris Troxel, Ken Corcoran, Steve Ellis, and T. Scott Ferguson.
Correct.
Okay, so is this a group that was going to be doing?
This would be the group that would be most showed up for interviews the majority of the time.
Was there interviews for the prosecutor position? That was that, do you remember?
Not to my recollection, no.
Deputy counsel to the mayor, yes. That was also in that. I'm going to jump over to 37. See, we're ending soon. Mike, Chris, Steve, Kent, and Sherry interviewed with Bill Mandry. I'll give you a second to take a look at this just to refresh your memory. Okay, hello all. Would like everyone to arrive at Ferg's office at 8 p.m. Monday evening for a brief meeting prior to Mrs. Perez and Associates interview at 8:30. The only agenda item for tomorrow's meeting will be a report from Rogie on his meetings with HW, which I assume would be Harry Wyatt. We should be finishing up the interviews this week. Jen is waiting to hear back from Schaefer, and she will line up an interview with the engineering firm of Remington & Vernick. Rogie will be conducting phone interviews this week. He will give us an update tomorrow night. Please be prepared to give your written recommendations, including reasons for recommendations for all positions that we've interviewed for. Rogie will give us a deadline on the recommendations for tomorrow night's meeting. Just a quick update. Mike, Chris, Rogie, Kent, and Sherry conducted the interview with Bill Mandry. The only discussion Saturday was that we agreed to get as many people to attend the town council meeting Tuesday, 12/15 as we can. Can you explain why Mike Swick, Chris Troxel, Rogie, of course, Ken Corcoran and Sherry were interviewing Bill Mandry, and why there was so many people who had to come to the meeting on the 15th? Can you recall?
To the first part, why? I'm sorry, what was the first part?
Why they were interviewing Bill Mandry?
He was being interviewed for the land use board attorney. And as to the second part, the council meeting on 12/15, at that time, I believe this is when the salary for the mayor was rolled back via resolution. And there obviously was in the newspaper about his salary being rolled back. And this was a way of wanting to get as many people to the meeting on 12/15, where it was being brought back up to show support and to express support for reinstating the mayor's salary.
Absolutely.
Mr. McBride, is it your position that the meeting was then orchestrated by the Ellis transition team in order to show support for Mayor Ellis as like a public display of support?
Yes.
Almost falsified, or were the statements made for them?
Statements were made for them, and talking points were handed out to those people that were contacted.
Okay.
Not everybody that went up was given a prior statement to be made. There were people that generally did come out on their own accord to show support. There were other people within those ranks that did come up to make statements that were prepared statements.
Thank you.
And to your point, Mr. Fulper, email number 39. the minutes from the 12/7/15 meeting. And on the very last point, number 6, it says, discuss the importance of filling. Now, again, these are not your minutes, so I don't expect you, again, I would ask if you can recall, you do. Discuss the importance of filling the chamber with, quote, unquote, our people. What is our people?
Filling the chamber with our people would be Democrats that were supportive of Ellis during his campaign, and anybody else that did support him.
Understood. Email number 43. This is the agenda for Saturday. All have attached a copy of the agenda for Saturday's team meeting. Also, Rogie would like everyone to come to the meeting with written recommendations for municipal attorney and judge positions, along with reasons why you've chosen a particular candidate. I will give everyone a blank envelope to put their recommendations in and hand it directly to Rogie. A discussion will be had regarding the other interviews that were conducted. Sherry. Our town's fate is sealed, pun intended, in the proverbial envelope for discussions from a non-elect civilian board.
Correct.
Okay. Presentations for recommendations for municipal attorney, judge, etc. Preparation town council meeting. Discussion for the agenda items. Council one determine. Do you recall if Mayor Ellis attended that? Mayor-elect Ellis attended that December 15th meeting?
Do you mean December 12th?
December.
I'm sorry.
Yes, the December meeting where they wanted to flood with our people. Did he attend himself?
I don't recall.
Yes, he attended?
No, his phone went off.
I'm sorry?
His phone went off during the meeting.
So he did attend. Thank you very much, Vicki. Email number 45. And after that, Mrs. McBride, I only have one more left.
Oh.
Okay. And that subject is transition team minutes. Sherry to submit email to Vicki with 12/16 with the deadline 500. So, team. And I assume at this point in time, and I don't want to get into every single email, I pick and choose the ones that I need clarification on, in addition to maybe where you can shed some light to have discrepancy, hopefully in favor of the things I have questions on.
Okay.
All right, but at this point in time, by December 12th, 2015, I believe Ms. Corcoran had already submitted her resume to you, was interviewed, and was basically selected for the position of...
Correct.
At that point, it was still administrative assistant, not really approved by council yet, but
correct.
I guess congratulations to her. I have here a few things that are glaring. Sherry will send an email to the town clerk this weekend requesting a list of documents in priority order that are still needed by the team. She will give a deadline to the clerk for receipt of all documents, which will be Wednesday, December 16th, 2015. The reason why that question I just preferenced before getting into this was I had to make sure I had established her hierarchy on the transition team, because I'm not sure if that hierarchy actually trumps contacting the town clerk and giving her a deadline from a person on that end of the spectrum of a mayor that was town elect. So the mayor didn't, it says here, the mayor-elect didn't ask, and that's probably a question for, I'll pose to you first, and I'll pose to Vicki second. I'm not sure if you recall, a couple of years ago, emails being sent to you by Ms. Corcoran regarding deadlines and paperwork.
I don't recall. I would have to check my email.
Very good, ma'am. There's a need to determine, these are bulleted and not numbered, that's why I'm not giving a number. There is a need to determine the financing of the celebration following the ceremony, as well as an additional $550, that is the balance of payments due from the campaign.
Correct.
What was that all about?
There had been a misprint in some flyers that had to be paid for by the campaign that had not currently, we did not have the current balance of funds. So with any type of campaign, you obviously, if you have a bill due, you have to keep on fundraising until you can pay all your bills off. So that was the 550 was in reference to the financing for the celebration. Obviously, there was the inaugural celebration held at Flynn's, which was very nice, by the way. I love Flynn's. But that too, since we did not have even enough money to cover the $550 in the account, we would have to continue for fundraising to pay the bill for that party as well.
So are you saying that you were, that 550 you were kind of in the hole for?
We were in the hole for the 550.
Going into that party?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we jump to email 53? I didn't have this for our committee. I didn't have this highlighted, but I'm going to jump to it real quick. Just do a lot of paperwork. You have to jump through a lot. That's better. Okay. And that looks like meeting minutes from 12/19. Pretty lengthy.
Yes.
Rogie has, this is in bold, confidentially and italics, proposed the following appointments, and he names the insurance firm, Fairview Insurance Agency, which I'll get to in a minute. Remington and Vernick is the engineering firm. Special counsel, Dakota's law firm. Prosecutor, Chris Troxel, in parentheses, mayor and council to evaluate a possible increase in salary to be determined. So we're prior to swearing in, and so at that point in time, I guess Mr. Troxel, and congratulations on his confidential appointment there, but is, I guess, assumed to get a salary increase on December 19th, 2015, before he's named prosecutor. Right? Okay.
Chairman.
I'm just trying to follow. Yes, yes, sir.
Do you remember how that conversation went with regard to the proposed raise for Mr. Troxel?
No, I do not.
No. It is your position that the increase in pay was discussed prior to him being officially appointed again as the municipal prosecutor?
Yes.
Are you aware that the first ordinance passed under the Ellis administration did in fact provide Chris Troxel with a approximate $4,000 raise?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mention was made of an award recipients for outstanding service during the campaign. Deb Myers, Pete Marino, Larry Marino, and others. All will be announced at the Rogie celebration. Did you receive any awards?
I did.
Congratulations.
Fantastic fundraiser.
Very good. And my last one is number 62, which is the last email. And this discusses, this looks like you and the mayor-elect going back and forth a little bit regarding the insurance. It says here, I'm trying to figure, Ellis Transition at gmail.com wrote. Which that's not you, right? Ellis Transition?
No, that is not. That email was created by Sherry Corcoran.
Just curious, how did they know that we selected them? I guess firm of the insurance, as mentioned prior, since Kent and Rogie have not made the official notification via phone yet. So I'm trying to establish, so the determination of our town's insurance was, hopefully, yes, for the mayor, but also Ken Corcoran as well.
Yes. And, well, that email transition, ellistransition@gmail.com, was created by Sherry Corcoran and primarily used by her.
Understood. And this is regarding the Fairview Insurance Group,
Correct.
which I saw them a nice back and forth with them. At this time, that concludes my email portion of my questions. I do have a few other questions for you regarding some documents that were turned over. I have some receipts here. I kind of sifted, I understood what we have going on. There were two actually in particular that I need a little more clarification on. Okay. The first one is a check from Steve Ellis and Rebecca Ellis, check 4083 on 11/3/15, if I'm not mistaken, that's election day. And that check was to Donna Messina for $70, and the memo was campaign.
Yes.
Were you the treasurer at this time, or?
I was still the treasurer at the time. A copy of that check was submitted to me with a packet of receipts that Mayor Ellis had from the campaign that he personally financed for his campaign. Obviously, as you know, that as a candidate, you're allowed to spend as much money as you like on your campaign. That was submitted as a receipt in an envelope from Mayor Ellis. I do not know what it was since I did not get him to clarify it, what it was for.
Okay. And being transparent, I only ask because the irony of this date is election day. And on election day, I was inside Democratic campaign headquarters. I was summoned to cross the street as I was doing my lawn, like I mentioned before. And when I entered the building on election day, I saw just about all the people on the table of organization that's placed before you inside that building, working as they should be for any campaign. But Ms. Messina was there, and I had a very nice conversation with her. I just don't understand that. I don't even know if I was there when the check. I'm trying to figure out why a personal check would come, but labeled campaign. I don't want to use the V word for violation. That's for further discussion. But I just didn't know if you knew anything about that.
No, since it was not written from the campaign account, I would not have heard of that.
So I want to make sure it didn't come from there. Thank you very much. And the last thing I have for you is a $1,500 credit card Visa sale on January 1st, 2016 at 4 p.m. even for $1,500.
Correct.
Could you explain what this is?
So the total cost of the inauguration day party at Flynn's was $3,000. At the end of the party, of course, there was not enough funds within our account to be able to pay for it. So the mayor paid for $1,500 of it, which, as I stated, as a candidate, you're allowed to pay as much as you like towards your campaign. The other $1,500 was paid for by the courtrooms.
Is this the mayor's receipt?
I gave you 2 receipts.
Yes, you did.
Yes, one is for the mayor's and one is for the courtrooms.
And for privacy purposes, even though the last 4 numbers, I'm not going to read them.
Correct.
But they are different.
Yes.
Both are for $1,500. Did that? I'm in receipt. I am in receipt of the donation list. I don't recall seeing $1,500.
Well, the $1,500 would have put them over the limit of contributions allowed in a single year. So it would have had to be put on as a loan against the campaign. Additional fundraising would have to have been done, and then they would have had to, the campaign would have had to pay the money back.
All right. I'm sure that's all on record somewhere. So
It's not actually on record. If you look at the filings after I resigned as treasurer, the Ellis's did the filings themselves, and it's not on the record on there as a loan or as an in-kind donation.
You said the Ellis's or both, or is it involved?
Well, I believe that Rebecca Ellis was listed as the new treasurer, and of course Stephen Ellis as the candidate has to sign the reports as well.
Understood.
As well as the campaign chair, I believe.
I am through my questions with yourself. Cannot thank you enough for your honesty and your candor. Sir, thank you very much. I'm going to turn the questioning over to Mr. Lutz right now, if he has any at all.
No, I don't. But I'd just like to say that if you read the notes and everything, I did not attend the meetings.
You most certainly did not.
I was shocked to even see what the meetings were about, just reading the emails. It's unbelievable how they just put me aside, snub me out. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Litz. Mrs. DiGirolamo?
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. Faulkner.
I do, and then you can get out of here. So, listening to Mr. McVeigh, I will do the very best that I can not to repeat any of the questions that he had asked, because he had asked some of the questions that I would already have asked. My questions are more towards the actual participants in the Ellis transition team. You may or may not have the answers, but with you, it seemed like you were an integral part of his transition team. You coordinated for him. I do remember him telling me at one point in time you were in charge of his social media.
Yes.
So, by the way, you did an excellent job with that. Because
Are you still? No, I have not been in charge of his social media for a very long time.
Do you have any more questions?
No.
No, okay.
That would just
How involved was Mike Swick politically during your tenure with the Ellis transition team?
He did a lot of campaigning, a lot of phone calling. He was involved in basically the donating. He would be DJ at some of the events, that kind of thing. Yeah.
You ever see him engage in political activity while on duty?
Yes.
You have. Was he in uniform or an unmarked car?
He was not in uniform, and I don't know what car he would have been driving. I don't pay attention to cars.
Do you mind if I ask how you knew he was on duty?
It was a discussion that was done on election day,
Okay.
where he was doing phone calls, and it was asked in passing, aren't you supposed to be at work?
And his answer?
It was a chuckle.
Okay. I think I got my answer.
Yeah.
How involved was attorney Christopher Troxel?
He stated from the very beginning he did not want to be openly or actively involved in the campaign because of, conflict issues. During the transition, he was minorly, and towards the end he was involved, just basically campaigning for his candidate. Since most of his involvement did not involve the greater group at large, I don't know what his direct involvement could have been with the mayor on a personal level.
Okay. I did see in some of these that he was providing some type of advice with regard to like SOP number 1, where he had said, I believe this is a good approach. So I know that he provided advice at one point in time. When the positions that were discussed in these meetings, and I believe you had already asked this, was a majority, and if you did, I apologize, Chairman, were the positions that did not exist, were they discussed in length at these meetings?
Yes, in the one particular. Obviously, the administrative aid, confidential aid, it was of paramount importance because Mayor Ellis felt that he was going into a hostile environment coming into the municipal building. It was of great importance to him to have someone that was one of his own there to sort of be a gatekeeper and be a confidant for himself.
Excellent. What about the captain's position that was provided to attorneys, to Mr. Swick? Was that discussed?
Specifically, the captain position, no.
Was there another position discussed?
It was a private conversation between the mayor and myself at his home residence. It was at the time that the current chief had retired, and there wasn't a position, there wasn't a person that he had chosen yet to fill it, and it was made that the mayor did tell me that he was waiting for Swick, and I forget the name, I think it started with a Z, another officer.
Zekman?
Thank you, yes.
You're welcome.
Another officer to take their test to see if they would be eligible to be for the chief's position.
Do you know why he had waited as opposed to just giving the position to the person next in line?
He had reservations about appointing Stettner because of the lack of support that he received from them during his campaign.
Who was the interview team? You had stated that there were multiple people. Would it be possible that the interview team was just about every member of the Ellis transition team?
At times, yes.
Were there others outside of the original email team?
Frequently there would be, in addition to that, Tom Palmieri, the Warren County Democratic Chair.
Right. He is on every single one of those
okay,
emails.
Yeah, no, he wasn't in attendance for all the interviews, but he was, for certain ones, he was part of the team as well.
Excellent. And I will try and move through my next set of questions very quickly. So going back to the original appointment of special counsel, the mayor had appointed Attorney Ferguson, correct?
Correct.
Do you know why he had chosen Attorney Ferguson?
He stated that he felt that it was owed to him due to being allowed to use his offices and all the support that he got through his campaign.
Okay, so if I heard correctly, he felt as if he
was obligated to.
Like he was obligated because of his contributions to his campaign.
Correct.
The mindset of our mayor at that point in time was, and obviously I don't think that you can answer this, so this will be a statement. It appears that the mindset of our mayor at that point in time was to provide those who contributed with what he felt they were owed. I know you can't answer that question. It's just a statement. So you were acting as the campaign treasurer for Mayor Ellis, yes?
Correct.
Okay. Did Attorney Christopher Troxel ever donate to that campaign?
Yes.
Did he work for the campaign?
Yes.
Provide advice?
Yes.
Okay. Corcoran family donate to that campaign?
Yes.
They work for the campaign?
Yes.
They provide advice?
Yes.
Scott Ferguson donate to that campaign?
Yes.
Did he work for the campaign?
Yes.
Did he provide advice?
Correct.
Did Sam Capello or any member of his family donate to his campaign?
I do not recall the full list of donors. I don't recall.
I can answer that for you if you'd like. Give me 1 second just to pull it up. Do you have the donor list?
I'm sorry?
Not Chairman, sorry. This is for the...
Just the one?
No, there should be two.
There should be two right there.
So, and I apologize because I have to go back and forth between these two sheets. So I can answer you that Mr. Capello's wife Sandy donated $40 to the Ellis campaign on August 29, 2015 with check number 5109.
Okay.
Okay?
It wasn't a large, so it wasn't something that...
Correct.
That didn't stand out.
Did he partake in any campaign events?
But Mr. and Mrs. Capello?
Yes.
They both did.
They both did. Do you care to elaborate, or shall I?
Well, they came to, I believe, several like campaign. We were doing at the football nights. There would be informal campaign gatherings there. Over the summer, this was before obviously the general election season really took way. Maria Rodriguez, who ran for assembly, I believe. The fellows were volunteers to appear in a commercial ad she ran with Mayor Ellis.
Okay, so apologize, I just want to check one thing here. I don't know if my volume's up because
As a community leader, I understand the importance of working with everyone to develop solutions to build a better...
okay, this is the aired commercial.
Correct.
For Maria Rodriguez, correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
I'll turn it.
Sure. You identify this woman right here?
Ms. Capello.
Ms. Capello?
Yes.
This gentleman here?
Sam Capello.
Gentleman in the middle?
Mayor Ellis.
Female? in the-
Maria Rodriguez.
To her left?
Becky Ellis.
And to their left in the back?
That's me.
That is you. And the gentleman to your left?
That's my father.
Excellent. So safe to say that prior to being elected, he did partake in events, they partook together, they were friendly, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. Okay. Let's talk about Mr. Swick. Did he donate to the campaign?
I believe so.
He did.
Again, yes.
$100. Would you like it? I can give you the check number if you'd like.
I do have the records of it. Like I said, in the list that they started going over that close to that $300 mark or $600
Right.
mark, it wasn't something that was on my radar because then I started reading contrary.
So we've already established then that Mr. Swick also worked for the campaign and attended campaign events, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what about Mr. Morissette? Did he donate or work for the Ellis campaign?
I do not recall if he donated. Mr. Morissette went door to door near the end of the campaign, but that was his fault. That was all of his involvement.
Did he attend campaign events?
Towards the end.
Towards the end.
Yeah.
Donna Messina?
I really don't know what she looks like. I'm sorry.
Nope, that's okay. So then that would cancel my questions of whether or not she had donated or worked for the Ellis campaign or attended any campaign events. So everyone that we had just discussed, so you're aware, either was given a position or created. A position was created for one of them.
Yes.
To a mayor with a mentality of providing jobs or something in kind because he had the mentality that they were owed. Okay. We've established the time frame of Ms. Corcoran's position, and I believe we've also established that she donated in excess of $1,500 to the Ellis campaign. Would that be correct?
Correct.
She was hired before taking the oath. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Not officially, but
Not
unofficially.
officially.
Would it surprise you, if I can, who is Carmela Corcoran?
Her mother-in-law.
Was she actively involved?
Donation-wise, I remember that name coming across several times.
And S. Frank Kuva.
That's relative of Sherry's as well.
Okay. Are you aware that both parties, 8 days after the position was created for Ms. Corcoran, that each of those parties donated $400 each to the Ellis campaign fund?
No, I was not aware of it until after I saw the campaign filings that Mayor Ellis and Mrs. Ellis submitted themselves.
Right. So $800 in donations donated on February 24, 2016, 4 months after Mayor Ellis had already been elected and a month and a half after he had already taken the oath of office. Was he still taking contributions to his campaign fund that you're aware of?
Not that I am aware of. Not, I was experiencing a large amount of medical issues at that time and was actually...
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yes.
Okay. I believe that is all that I have for you currently, and I do appreciate you coming out here. I don't think that we have to... There are other issues. I don't think that I will need your comment on those issues at this point in time.
Okay.
Sir, thank you very much. Did you have questions?
Just briefly, can I move the mic for a second?
Sure.
And we do open it up if you have questions for any of us.
I have nothing further.
Excellent. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming out this evening.
Thank you very much, and please note for the record that your participation is very welcome. Thank you, and your honesty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Chairman, I turn it over to you.
At this time, I'm going to open up discussion amongst the committee, talk amongst ourselves if we have anything regarding testimony that was given before us, questions that were asked by committee members, or any residual questions or something that you've thought of that you want to recycle back on, or maybe that Mrs. McBride's out of the room that you want to say. I'm going to start with Councilman Lutz first.
No, nothing.
Mr. Lutz, Mrs. DiGirolamo.
Just a couple things. If I'm hearing correctly, this information was just all turned over to us. Campaign violations really aren't of this group's. It's not what this group was called for, so I understand. I'm putting it to the side at this point. I'm listening, but that's really not for us to determine if that is valid or not. A lot of the appointments were the mayor's to make, so they are what they are. I think the chief concern would be anything that was interviewed for that wasn't properly advertised in advance. They would be the chief. I saw 2 of them within the emails that I was able to view quickly and from the Q&A that took place. Outside of that, I'm not sure what else we need to address. Through the initial concern was hiring practices, I believe, correct? The reason for the ad hoc? So outside of that,
Chairman Mayo.
I understand.
Are you in response, or?
Oh, I do. I thought she was asking a question. I
I'm
apologize.
not ready to turn
No,
it to
no.
you. I'm just, if it was in response to Mrs. DiGirolamo, I didn't know if that was. what
No,
you were
you
asking.
can respond. That's really all I had, just a couple comments, not anything else.
Mr. Fulper?
Thank you. Mrs. DiGirolamo is correct. The original reason we had formed the ad hoc committee were the hiring and employment practices of Mayor Ellis, because that was a major concern of a lot of our constituents. However, 2 complaints we have received since then caused us to expand the ad hoc committee. If it's okay with you, I'd like to touch a bit on those 2 situations and then make my recommendations to this body.
Most investigations unfortunately do have spin-offs from the information that's gathered along the way of the process. I believe you're saying that you have some information regarding this?
I do. Again, this was brought to our attention after the newspaper article regarding the ad hoc committee. We started to get phone calls, and I did relay them, Chairman, as you know, to you immediately. But I do believe that this would be the time we expand. However, I'm not going to use the parties' names, because I believe my personal recommendation, and I'm hoping that you'll all agree, is that these complaints be turned over to law enforcement, as I believe that this body is not, it's not within our purview, nor within our power to enforce. So the very first complaint that I have was I was approached by someone involved in the campaign of the mayor, and they had made allegations that there were missing funds. I've been provided with text message conversations between this person and the mayor. I do think that this would be an election law enforcement commission issue. I have letters to the Election Law Enforcement Commission made by this individual. I also was provided with all of the election forms, and after reviewing and seeing that during this conversation today and the conversation that had taken place earlier, the donations not being on the R1 forms or the C1 forms, not being reportable at all, I do think that this ad hoc committee should, because of the timeframes from receipt of the ELEC forms, there's a huge discrepancy. There's also a discrepancy in balances, signatures, and in all of the different filed forms from those of the documents submitted originally by Mrs. McBride, who served admittedly as the campaign treasurer. I would recommend that this committee send this to the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission, the State Attorney General's office, the Warren County Prosecutor's office, the Division of Community Affairs Legal Division. And those would be the 4 bodies that I would recommend sending this report to. But I don't believe that we're capable of dealing with something of this magnitude.
That's duly noted. And did you say you have a second issue?
I do. This one is a little bit easier. The only thing I can say is I will not identify this individual. However, I was contacted personally by this individual on May 8th, 2018, who states they were contracted by the mayor to clean a certain property, and he had submitted a proposal for $5,200. He was then asked to keep his invoice prices under $1,000 in an attempt to circumvent council, this is their words, not mine, in an attempt to circumvent council approval. And they were told that, allegedly told that by the mayor, which in my opinion, and after everything that we've read, is a violation of local campaign finance, I mean, the local public contracts law. You can't break up your original invoices. You can't, it seems to me too that there's a pattern. If you take a look at a lot of the invoices that we paid out, a lot of them come right under the threshold. So I think this would be better suited for the law enforcement agencies. On a side note, and a very interesting side note, this particular contractor states that he had accompanied the mayor to a second property where the property was locked, and the mayor then took him to the rear of the residence and shouldered the back door in. And then they proceeded to go inside, and the mayor had wanted him to clean that building. That job did not come about, and the contractor did not feel comfortable after watching the door being shouldered in. My recommendation for this particular complaint would be to make a report with the Phillipsburg Police Department, the Warren County Prosecutor's Office, and the Attorney General. I would also file an ethics violation with currently right now the local finance board. I don't believe that this would fall under those guidelines. And again, I don't think this is something we can take care of, that we can handle.
It's also duly noted, Mr. Faulkner. Do you have anything in closing?
You know, in closing, would you like me to give my closing comments?
Yes, sir, because I'm going to...
Okay.
Only because I offered the other two, then we're going to circle back.
No, there's no need to circle back to me. I've done enough speaking for this evening. You know, the word retaliation has been used a lot, but I don't think that people realize why we were elected. We were elected to clean up this type of activity, and whether or not it happened in the prior administration or the administration prior to that is not my concern, because I was not a councilman at that point in time. But I am a councilman now, and I do my due diligence. And I would not be doing my due diligence for the people if I didn't follow up on every complaint that was sent to me. The mayor and I are working towards a better relationship, and I would hope that he would realize that I'm doing my job. That's what I'm doing. The final opinion with regard to me is not one to condemn the mayor for choosing his appointees as an elected president would select his cabinet, but rather one condemning the mayor for failing to acknowledge and or follow appropriate protocol and hiring practices without creating positions, as what we heard here tonight was a reward for assisting with his campaign. The residents of Phillipsburg were promised transparency, and instead were met with an opaque representation of municipal government at its finest. This committee is not ignorant to the fact that this type of behavior may or may not have occurred, as said before, in prior administrations. And like Councilman McVeigh had said earlier, during our tenure, we will not follow suit. Fairness and opportunity should be for everyone, not just those who devoted their time to ensuring that an individual was elected to a position of authority. This has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. This has everything to do with being a part of an honest, hardworking government for the people. And that is the only way we will succeed, is if this stops. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fulper, and I'll wrap this up with my close. Table of organization that you see before you, I created. Most of it was discussed this evening. My issue with this is not this. My issue with this is that this was done before any mention of any meeting minutes, before there was discussion of recreation for our children, programs for our senior citizens, better traffic plans throughout the town, Section 8 housing, bum landlords that are running rampant, never mind the alleys that are in total disgrace, or the drugs that are ripping through this town. This is first. The other stuff is second. This cost $500,000 a year. The other stuff's costing us and our citizens our integrity and our quality of life. And that's why this was called. And that's okay, a lot of this is on there, because he can do a lot of this that's on here. But it is absolutely amazing to me how that guy can be like 15 for 15 in his appointments and his hires, when all of us out there had children, spouses, significant others, family members that have applications into this town that just go into the crapper the second they get up there, because it's already signed, sealed, and delivered. Now, as we saw by the testimony, still sticking with the original mindset of what we have here, you saw in full public transparency how this cake was made. I have a serious issue on how people were basically confidentially and even assumed the creation of jobs even before the oath of office was administered. And while they celebrated for months and brought the brooms out and everything, I know we're up here working hard, all of us. And we're trying to work with this, and that's hard. I can't go shopping. I can't go anywhere without people asking me about this creative position. What about that? And it involves everything from the police force, the boards, to all the creations. And I try to be the best I can. I try to be the stand-up sworn official I am to this town and say, yeah, you know what? We are the legislative branch. We do legislative stuff, and the mayor has the executive part, or the administrative part. We're supposed to work together. But it gets kind of frustrating when the phone rings and it rings empty on extension 302 and 303. We get the calls. Now we're doing city hall work. We're doing the administrative work. We're trying to do legislative work, and it becomes very frustrating. So if you do see, inflection in my voice and stuff, and for those of you who know me, as I'm wrapping up here, this is why. As I read the comments throughout the paper, everything from I am an idiot, or we're all idiots, or I should resign if nothing comes of this, so be it. But again, I stake my reputation on what we have here and what we've seen, and you only got what the questions were asked of Ms. McBride. There is a lot to do in this email, including of a very sensitive subject with me, because there is the start of the harassment with the town clerk in those emails from December forward, starting with deadlines from civilians to person of a high-ranking person, of course the town clerk. I have someone that was given a position, an interview, or turned in a resume on November 24th, 2015, interviewed on November 28th, 2015, then started giving directions in the month of December of 2015, all while working for, if I can pronounce this right, Actress Ceramic Corporation. That's who we were getting our information from in sealed envelopes and recommendations and things of that nature. That's my problem. I just wish everything would have waited till this morning like we did. Mr. Lutz, I'm sure the same with you. You got elected, you went and you did your job. And you've done your job since day one. And that's one of the reasons why I went forward with this, when you stepped away from this debacle, to be quite honest with you. I don't understand how we can have interviews for that administrative assistant position on February 15th of 2016 and forward, when the position was already sealed up. While there were resumes and applications, well, I don't even think it was posted correctly, as most of the jobs in this table of organization were not posted at all, if at all. And I believe that's one of the reasons why one person on this table of organization left, because of the concerns of a young man that was let go. His parent raised such a stink saying, I will go to the papers with your hiring processes, and that person resigned. I'm in receipt. I asked the town clerk for paperwork regarding the confidential aid. It's all here. I looked at it. I'm not going to get in great detail on it. But I will say this. There is information, there's actually confidential information here from her former employment regarding social security numbers and salaries and names of the workers there that were turned in. As far as, I guess, this is my work, this is what I do. So I'm not sure how that confidential aid was selected by the mayor, because she's turning over confidential aid over confidential information, social security numbers and salaries of her current employer. So with that being said, that alone has puts the ad hoc committee of our hiring and appointing practices in a wrap, which is fine. Now I must move on to Mr. Fulber's concerns regarding the local contract laws and election violation. As you heard me state the questions to Mrs. McBride, in addition to Mr. Fulber's very accurate depiction of what had transpired, I'm not going to dwell on it any longer. My recommendation is going to be, and I'm making a motion now to the ad hoc committee, I'm making a motion to make a recommendation to our council to move forward with moving the paperwork and the information in this ad hoc committee to the Warren County Prosecutor's Office, the New Jersey Attorney General's Office, Consumer Affairs Legal Division, and New Jersey Election Committee. That is my motion on the table as I speak. Do I have a second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will be preparing a recommendation to Town Council to vote on moving forward with moving our documentation forward.
If I may, Chairman, I think it would be prevalent or important for this committee to send an advisement to council, which is us, with Councilman Davis, the request to provide an employment audit so we can find out if the jobs were posted. We did have an attorney review, and some of them came back as indictable offenses. If we can fix what's broken, and again, I don't want to seek charges, I really would rather fix what's broken as opposed to see someone be charged.
Are you suggesting to do the employment audit first before forwarding the documentation to the non-civilian boards?
No, I would do it at the same time, concurrent.
Any other member of the panel have any thoughts on that? Mrs. DiGirolamo?
Conservative side says to me, if we turn it over to law enforcement, won't they pay to have the audit done?
That's a good question.
Shall we wait for the findings of law enforcement? Although I must say, I am a little concerned. We waited 6 months. This is what we wasted 6 months on. I really think that people need more than what they've gotten thus far. I mean, we have completed a lot in 6 months' time. I mean, I know, there's a lot of people, like you had said on the internet, saying, what do? They're wasting taxpayers' money. I got news for you. This doesn't cost anything. And those who say that the lawsuits are costing money, well, they don't cost anything either unless we lose. I don't plan on losing. Chairman, I have one more thing that I would like to read, because what I have been seeing on the internet bothers me.
Go right in.
And I don't read the internet, but this will go to show you how out of touch some people are. I have with me an email that was sent to Mike Swick by David Morissette. I will skip the part, the personal part, and I will get to the part that bothers me the most. Also, I had 4 folks I met when I was canvassing that if Steve had time at some point in the near future, I would like him to minimally stop at their door and say hello. I do not want them to think that our reaching out to them was just to get their vote, but that Steve really cares about them. I also realize that Steve is very, very busy and that asking this is a bit of a burden. But I think that minimally Steve and you would want me to ask. Jose de Leon, his disabled veterans groups, was snubbed by the town regarding marching in the Veterans Day Parade. Jose is the webmaster and committee member for the State Disabled Veterans Group. Another issue has to do with the closing of the town's health clinic. His commute back and forth to the Recovery Health Center can take up to 3 hours with the bus. He also does not like going to the Coventry Health Center, and I will not get into that because this is a private medical issue. I will skip that entire part out of respect for this resident because of that health issue. I told a lady on Sitgrave Street that Steve Ellis is not an empty promise. When I was canvassing, she told me that she was a Democrat through and through, but did not know why she would vote for a Phillipsburg Democrat. Nobody had ever canvassed there before, and I was the first person remotely connected to the town or Phillipsburg politics that had ever visited her. She expressed the issue that I heard from a couple of folks that I spoke with. Why would I care about what you think unless I think you care about me? This lady's daughter was the first black cheerleader on the Phillipsburg cheerleading squad. I think it would be good for Steve to at least say hello to her. Unfortunately, I don't have her name, but I could find it out. If those lists are still around from when we canvassed, I made some notes. Otherwise, I can just ask down on Sitgraves. She was an older black lady that wore an oxygen cannula. Another lady who was on Main and Sitgrave Street who impressed me, I would like Steve to say hello to, and I don't remember her name. She had cancer. She was sitting outside on the stoop. She clearly was undergoing chemo. Her main concern, interestingly enough, was that there was a place called Mike's Deli that, in her opinion, was keeping her alive by providing her with free food. After confirming this conversation with the lady, it might not be a bad gesture for Steve to stop in at Mike's Deli. Her concern was that because Mike's Deli was not down on Main Street, Mike's Deli did not seem to benefit from all the stuff that would be helping folks out on Main Street, like the UEZ. She initially said she did not think she would vote because it would not make a difference. When I left, she said that if it was all possible in terms of her health, she was going to vote for Steve and the ticket. Her only possible issue was that she had chemo on Monday, but she would try to get there to vote on Tuesday. I think I can ask at Mike's Deli for the lady's name, or maybe Steve could ask for her name when stopping in at Mike's Deli. The last place I would like Steve to stop would be Tom's Diner down on Main Street. Maybe he could have breakfast or brunch there with Mark Lutz. Tom is a friend of Mark since Mark often eats there. Tom chats and knows many of his customers that I think it is a very good thing to have Tom in your camp. Tom had a big Ellis and Davis and Lutz sign at the front of his business. Also, based on my experience in this town and the word of the business people and tradesmen I've spoken with, it has been an act of courage to express the support for the Democratic Party in this town, and they would never do so even though they wanted the Democrats. Now let me give you my comments. Mr. Morissette is out of touch beyond belief. That lady on Sitgrave Street, her name is Mary Stone. You know why I know? Because I care about my town. Mike's Deli, it's up the road from your home. There's a place called Mike's Deli. It's less than 4 blocks from where you reside. The last place would be Tom's Diner. Sir, you who runs the Phillipsburg Fact Checker, the man's name was George Canupus. His father founded Tom's Lunch. His name was not Tom. It was never Tom. And quite frankly, it will never be Tom. To you, everything is politics. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of reading it. This is about Phillipsburg. And do you know why George Canupus has not returned back to Phillipsburg? Because there is nothing down there. They have closed. I suggest, in my personal opinion, you stay off the internet, you work, and then maybe you be involved a little bit more with this community. 40 years I've spent here, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. And that is all.
Quite frankly, Joe, I don't care. Everything you did.
I did ask Mr. Fulper if he had closing comments, and he did. Number 7 is establish meeting schedule. It is my recommendation and motion at this time to dissolve the ad hoc committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There will be no further schedule. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance and your dedication to Phillipsburg.